Thank you, Diraj. I just wanted to say welcome to everybody from wherever in the world you're logging in from. I'd like to extend a very warm welcome on behalf of the UBC Sauder School of Business. As Diraj mentioned, my name is Zaa Nkweta. I'm the manager for Recruitment and Admissions in regards to the UBC MBA. And I will also be introducing later on my colleague, Mary Cowan, who is the manager of the MBA Careers at the UBC Sauder School of Business. So before we get started, I just wanted to, as you can see on your screen, I just wanted to highlight some additional developments and information in and around our application deadline. So we have extended our deadlines and added an additional round for international and domestic students. So for international students, the deadline to submit an application is August 18th with a final document deadline of November 20th. So I would urge you to submit an application as complete as possible, and also to try to get any supporting documents ahead of that November 20th deadline. I would advise you to do that as soon as you can, bearing in mind, obviously, study permits and immigration requirements as well. There is my colleague, Mary Cowan, as I mentioned. She will go into a little bit more detail in terms of the BCC, which is our Business Career Center at UBC. So just to give you an idea of the timeline, we will be having a start in and around the 11th of January. Program will still be 16 months in duration. And just bear in mind that this date is subject to change with respect to COVID-19 protocols as per Canadian health and governmental authorities. The good news is that BC, or British Columbia, we continue to lead Canada in flattening the curve with respect to COVID-19. So we are very optimistic that we would be able to meet that January 11th start date, all things considered. So, central question is why a UBC MBA? And I just wanted to point you to some central pillars above and beyond the course content as to why we believe it would be a good thing for you to pursue an MBA at the University of British Columbia. Number one is our global immersion experience, our focus on experiential learning, and of course, our personalized career development. I'll get into that in a little bit more detail as we move forward. We are fortunate to be included in the top 45 schools, global elite. We are #1 in Canada for business and economics, and we have over 40,000 alumni in over 80 countries around the world. We're also located in Vancouver, one of the most beautiful cities in the world, one of the most livable cities in North America, and rated as Canada's fastest growing metropolitan economy. We are home to a few regional offices from some multinational companies, including SAP, McKinsey, and Microsoft, Amazon. And we do also have some local companies that you may have heard of. For those of you who are into yoga or athletic wear, Lululemon Athletica is a very notable company here in Canada and Vancouver, and as well as Hootsuite. So moving forward into the program itself and what it consists of, we have some foundational modules, and these are mandatory courses for learning. They apply key business discipline foundations from investment theory to marketing. And as you can see, some of the courses include accounting, entrepreneurship, marketing, operations, and so on. One of the fields that we place a strong emphasis on include ethics and sustainability, global issues, creativity, leadership, and decision-making for managers as well. Now, one of the central features in the UBC program consists of our career tracks, which are specialized courses for developing advanced skills and knowledge. They include our technology and analytics leadership track, which is a new track, also known as TAL. Our finance track, our product and service management track, our innovation and entrepreneurship track. And for those who are looking to perhaps pursue a career in management consulting, we also have a custom track in which you can tailor your interests to suit your career objectives, and is especially valuable if you're considering a career in consulting. So this would be more of a blend of courses to suit your career needs. As I mentioned earlier, we have a new track, Technology and Analytics Leadership. It gives our graduates the skills to drive change. You'll be able to lead in technology industries. You can see some of the companies that we foresee students being able to be employed by. Courses tend to focus on things like data viz, AI commercialization, machine learning, and fintech. This can take you into careers such as technology consulting, product management, business analysis, and so on. Now, I had mentioned our focus on experiential learning, business strategy integration, so skill development in courses and managerial decision-making across disciplines, perspectives, and cultures. We have an internship, a paid internship, an entrepreneurial project, and of course, a capstone project. So focusing in on the internship, it is a paid internship. Salary ranges between 3,000 and 6,000 Canadian dollars per month over a 4-month period. You also have the option of doing an entrepreneurial project or an industry project as well. So a very strong focus on giving you the applied knowledge that you've learned through our course content. We're also a very globally minded program. We belong to the Global Network for Advanced Management. We have a global immersion program, which is an international business consultancy project, and an exchange program with some of the leading schools across the globe. So for instance, in our global immersion experience, students are tasked with solving a real-world problem that an international company is facing. These are some of the locations that we have implemented the global immersion experience: Berlin, Santiago, Tel Aviv. And we choose these companies and these locations in terms of what they can deliver in terms of their learning outcomes for our students. I had also mentioned that we are part of the Global Network for Advanced Management. This is an organization that was spearheaded by the Yale School of Management, includes 30 leading business schools from across the globe. And as an MBA candidate, you will have the opportunity to leverage this network. So how would you do that? One of the ways that is possible is to take part in our Global Network Weeks. So you can take 4 credit classes in another partner institution in a focused course that really leverages the institution's expertise. And you can also do online courses for credit as well at one of our partner institutions. And just to give you an example of some of the course themes that were delivered in 2019 with our institutional partners include things like innovation, transition, and sustainability in Shanghai, or Bay Area innovation and entrepreneurship in Berkeley, digital transformation in Spain, and our incoming students in this partnership, for example, at the UBC Sauder School of Business, focused on sustainable development goals, cities, and inclusive properties. So this is a way for you to further gain some international exposure, to network with partners overseas, and so on. As I previously mentioned, we have 34 exchange partners across the world. We have students going on exchange to schools such as Copenhagen, the Copenhagen Business School, Melbourne University, Warwick, UC Davis, and so on. Now, coming back to one of the pillars that I had mentioned is our personalized career coaching. And this consists of career and professional development programming. It features things like networking events, industry speakers, mock interviews, one-on-one career coaching, and this connection with our Business Career Center, or BCC, continues for life. It gives you the support that you need, especially as an international student coming into Canada, trying to build your network going forward. We are one of, I believe, one of maybe one or two schools that actually focuses on what we call emotional intelligence, those soft skills, being able to build better relationships, manage difficult emotions, manage conflict, to really get a self-assessment of your own skill set, what gaps you have in your skill set, and ways in which you can address those gaps going forward. It has been found that this increases creativity, innovation. It helps you to lead others effectively and to better contribute to the organization that you're working for. So in terms of the career outcomes, I'd like to just give you a snapshot of the class of 2019 in terms of where they went. We had 87% that were employed 90 days after graduation. You can see a range of full-time positions across several sectors, as well as internships that were accrued across several sections or sectors as well. Average salary 90 days after graduation was about 82,000 Canadian dollars. And the salary range was between 50 and 220,000 Canadian dollars. In terms of the lower range of that salary range, please bear in mind that this data is compiled using different currencies. And so we would do the currency conversion, and hence the 50,000 data point that you can see up there. And just to give you another snapshot in terms of where our students, their background, where they're coming from and their class composition, we run a class or a cohort between 95 and 100 students. You can see for the class of 2020 profile, almost at gender parity, very, very close to gender parity. Quite a wide age range. You see students coming from different academic backgrounds, including engineering, business science, computer science, law. In my recent experience, I've seen a lot of students coming through or applying or being interested coming from the medical field as well, or the military. So quite a very diverse cohort, which we believe adds to the strength of our cohort and your learning experience at UBC Sauder. Very international as well, 46% in terms of where our students come from around the world. And now just drawing your attention to some of our admission requirements. We're looking for academic achievement in terms of a GPA of a B+, or a 76%, or a 3.3 out of 4. We do require a GMAT score. The competitive score is 650. We'll be looking at verbals and the quant section. For the GRE, you're looking at a 320 plus to be competitive. In terms of our baseline scores, it's a 550 GMAT and a 300 GRE. So the minimum work experience required to apply, to be eligible to apply to this program, is a minimum of 2 years of full-time work experience. And in terms of the competitive range, you're looking at between 3 and 5 years of professional work experience. We will require 2 professional references, some written and video essays, an English proficiency test if your language of instruction was in a language apart from English, and a personal interview. So just to reiterate again, the deadline to apply is August 18th, 2020. Tuition fees you can see for international students as well. and the composition of the class in terms of how many students, give or take, will be eligible for a scholarship. Our scholarships range between $10,000 and $40,000, and for the most part, we assess you for a scholarship at the time of admission, so we would assess you both for admission and scholarship at the same time. So just to wrap this up before I hand this over to Mary, if you need to contact me, you can find my, my email details there, and we can set up a personalized appointment for those of you who are unable to speak to me afterwards in the appointment slots that we have after this webinar. So for now, I'd like to end that this part of the presentation. Diraj, over to you before we go to Mary.
Thank you, Zaa. Mary, you can continue with the presentation on your part.
Thanks, Diraj, and thank you, Zaa. Really pleased to be here and to share some more information and give a little bit more color to what Zaa was talking about in terms of personal career coaching. We work in a very large team within our Business Career Center, or to be known from now on as the BCC. The Career Center prides itself on running in tandem with the student and their academic journey and helping them with their career action plan or career management for life. We hope that the skills that you learn and you work with within the program will help you to secure an internship if that's what you're looking to do, to your first job post-MBA, to the job that you look toward 5 years from now. So in order to understand some of our principles and our priorities, the career action plan, the slide you can see now, has 4 components or quadrants. There's no set way in working through these quadrants where you can see, you have to work through self-awareness before you get to market awareness, to personal brand, to experience. And I think that's one of the sort of assets to looking at this program is we work with you on a personalized basis. So it may be looking at what experience you have and where you've been and what you've done and what transferable skills they are in that background. And then we think about where can that go? Where can it go geographically? What makes sense for you in terms of the market? So each quadrant has, as you can see, a number of different components. But I wanted to just highlight that it doesn't necessarily mean that it works in a 1, 2, 3, 4 chronology. When you look at self-aware, we think about, what are you interested in? Your interests, your values, what's important to you, your motivators, and then of course your strengths. We look at goal setting, obviously, to help set goals and keep you accountable. And then, as Zaa's already talked about, the importance of a career mindset and emotional intelligence. And we are thrilled to be able to use an emotional intelligence assessment tool as a way of helping students think about their profile in terms of leadership and where are some of the areas they might want to turn up the volume and areas that they might want to work on in terms of being more ready for the market. When we go to market awareness, we think about, your career research. If you've got a goal in mind, does it make sense to be looking in a certain market? What types of things are they looking for? Does that line up with your background? Does the role alignment make sense? And of course, that incorporates getting to know the market, and that means talking to people. So networking events, informational interviews, chatting to people, getting out there and sort of validating your assumptions about different roles and understanding. Personal brand is, I think, what most people feel is career management within the MBA. It's writing a resume, of course. It's looking at your LinkedIn profile. It's looking at your brand, your online brand. But I think it's more than that. It's about your ability to share who you are and what you're doing and being really confident in your storytelling, in what's led you to this experience and within the MBA, and where do you hope to go next, and what skills you are getting within the program that are arming you for that experience. And then we look again at the experience itself. What have you brought to the table from a community base, from the fact that you may well have lots of volunteer experience, to your work experience, thinking about getting opportunities and navigating that offer. So when we think of negotiation, skills in negotiation, and of course, interview skills. So that kind of gives you a quick overview of the themes that we would be touching upon throughout the program. And happy to field questions about any of these specifically a little bit later in the Q&A. Zaa will move to the next slide. So as you can imagine, COVID has had an interesting impact on a lot of our programming. And that programming is specifically around, you know, networking events and company information sessions and so on, where we can't have large groups of people together. So what we've been able to do is we've been able to transition very successfully online. And so our one-on-one coaching has moved to a Zoom format for the most part. We continue to coach students and see our students, and we have unlimited coaching slots for students. They can come and see us as much as they need to and want to. Our career workshops have also moved to an online format. And it's been actually really interesting to hear the student feedback about how they have found it actually quite refreshing, and the experience has been, it hasn't taken away from not being in the classroom, as it's again very much a two-way street where students are able to ask their questions, they bring up topics, we put students in small little breakout groups with maybe a facilitator who can help field questions on a smaller scale, which we might not have been able to do in a larger group when you're designated to one large classroom. So there's definitely been advantages. The networking events is one that I think was a bit of a challenge initially. We're like, how do we duplicate the opportunity that students have to interact with our alumni and with people in industry and people hiring in the market? And so over the last 3 months, in May and June, we've run 5 events where we have brought alumni into a alumni networking event. And they've been able to share their stories, talk to students about their experience and field questions. And we've done it in areas of expertise. So last week we did one for our entrepreneurs, people who are interested in either an intrapreneurial path or an entrepreneurial path. And talking to alumni, there were 15 alumni with 45 students. And they were able to go into these individual breakout sessions. So one alum with 3 students. So it was very much an opportunity to ask very personalized questions and get very sort of, I think, deliberate answers around their own queries and questions. So we're thrilled to be able to see some successes in our networking events. And what will happen likely as we move into late summer and fall, company information sessions are looking at doing something very similar. A number of companies, large organizations based in Canada, are already planning and are facilitating some of these sessions. I sat in one with McKinsey last Friday, and RBC Global Leadership Program ran about 2 weeks ago. And so they also are experimenting with the platform to use, but very much committed to getting in front of students and sharing their interest in understanding who they are and really understanding the student and being able to build some two-way communication, that students get the opportunity to ask really detailed questions around a career with McKinsey, RBC, Scotia, whoever it might be. So I think we've all had to be nimble and be sort of show a bit of ingenuity here around our new model, but it seems to be working. We're finding that the feedback we're getting from our current students who are just in the tail end of securing their summer experience, either internship or entrepreneurial project, are finding that it's been an interesting transition, but one that's been quite beneficial. And you can see the quote there at the bottom of that slide, sort of, you know, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read or write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And I think we've all done a lot of learning and relearning as we've coped with the situation of COVID-19 in the spring of 2020. Next slide. This is an example of one of our events. So this was the finance event. You can see there's a number of us on this Zoom call. That's just one screen. That gives you an idea of the students, some of the career managers. There's a number of my colleagues there, and a number of our alumni. One thing I didn't mention, which I really love, which the advantages to working on a call like this, is when it's an in-person networking event, we don't have the opportunity to bring people in from across the country. You know, Canada's a really big place, and so our alumni are scattered across the country. So when I look at this picture, the very first thing I see are alumni who are based in Calgary, who are based in Toronto, and they're able to share their expertise and, you know, the opportunities that are in those markets. So I think that's a really exciting piece that we aren't able to do when we're thinking about our in-person sessions. The other thing I'll mention around COVID in terms of the one-on-one coaching and just thinking about how we've had to change and how students have had to change is they've had to be much more intentional in their applications to opportunities. There's definitely been some sort of quieting of the job market, and so students are finding that it's you know, to put the time and energy going back to those 4 quadrants around what do I want to do, and really thinking long and hard about what that is, and then being very intentional in their applications, has meant that they've done probably fewer applications for opportunities, but they've been a much better quality, and that's leading to opportunities. We're finding our 2020 class is still in the midst of securing their post MBA experience, and where there's lots of optimism there. And we're finding a lot of our organizations in our local market haven't felt that they've had to turn off the tap on hiring. In fact, a local HR tech resource company shared some stats that if they've had to lay off in the short term, that it is temporary, and that their goal later in the year is to continue to bring people on, new employees, as well as promote. So that's some really good news. The other article I just read on LinkedIn yesterday, which I thought was interesting for those of you who are particularly interested in Vancouver and the Canadian market, is the Canadian market and the economy is improving, not weakening. Canada created 290,000 jobs last month, one of the strongest on record. 64% of Canadians felt secure in their roles. And that's about the same as pre-pandemic. So I thought that was a really optimistic note to just sort of share with you as you think about the different areas to be targeting geographically for your MBA. Next slide, Zaa.
And we're done.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome. Welcome any questions.
Thank you very much for this wonderful presentation. And we are now ready to go to the questions. And I would like to encourage everyone that has any questions to our speakers to type them in the Q&A box and the Q&A tab there on your Zoom platform. I will start by asking you a question, actually, the people that are with us today. It is a custom of ours to make a small poll during our webinars to just inquire what is important for candidates when choosing their MBA or master's degree. So I would like to activate this poll, and I will now activate the poll so that you can vote in it and ask you what is most important for you when you choose your MBA degree. I'm launching the poll now, and you can answer. It should be appearing on your screen. You can answer at the poll that I've just launched to tell us what is most important when choosing an MBA degree. This is usually quite interesting, both for us to know as an organization that is organizing webinars for the schools, and for you as well, because you might learn something new and something interesting that about what other people are considering when looking for the MBA of their choice. I see that there's a lot of voting going on right now, so I will keep it for some more seconds to give you the chance to answer the question. And then we will proceed with the other questions that have already built up from you to the UBC admissions team and career advisor. Okay, so now I'm ending the poll and I will share the results with you. So I hope everyone can see that the rankings are something that is quite considered when choosing an MBA by the candidates. And second place are the costs, of course, which is quite normal in the current situation. And faculty and curriculum is quite an important point that people are looking at. Location, of course, is one of the primary things to look at when going for an MBA degree. So I will be happy if I get some comment by our speakers as well on this on these results. And I'm stopping the results right now and going to the questions. So any comment on the results? What do you think? Any advice?
Yes, I'm happy to see that in terms of the results that were given. I feel our school excels in all aspects in that regard. If rankings is something that concern you, we are, rated the #1 business school in Canada. In terms of our faculty, we have a faculty that consists of world-leading researchers who also have their foot in business in the practical world. Location, I think that speaks for itself. I don't know if some of you have been to Vancouver, but it is an absolutely breathtaking, stunning city. And I think we're also quite competitive when it comes to cost in terms of the level of schools that we are associated with. I think the value that one gets in terms of what we offer, both in terms of our faculty, in terms of our global outlook, in terms of our career outcomes, I think the value and the return on investment is quite strong. Mary, anything to add on that?
I would echo that. I think that it's interesting because Zaa and I see students at different points of the process. So when he's looking at prospective students, and then I see them once they've arrived, and I ask them, why did you pick Sauder School of Business for your program? And inevitably they've said research and faculty and the reputation of the school. But I can't ignore the fact that a lot of people also say it's just an amazing city to live in, and it's a beautiful place. And it's very aligned, being sort of the west coast of North America. So if you've got an interest in Pacific Rim, and a global outlook, we are a very global city. You are aligned with Cascadia, sort of California, Oregon, Washington, British Columbia. There's a lot to be had here. And then thinking about the industries, like we are, not as large a city as Toronto, but we have a lot of companies that are born and bred here and feel very attached to this market. And so oftentimes students are excited about this sort of burgeoning city and one that's growing and developing. And I think that is very attractive to the students and why they've chosen us in the end.
Okay, that's quite interesting. And now for the questions, we are starting to build up a lot of questions. I will start with the admissions ones, and I will direct one directly to, and I will direct one to Zaa for regarding the GMAT. So there is a couple of questions regarding the GMAT. One of them is due to the COVID crisis, there is no institution to take the GMAT exam. Is there a chance to waive this exam? This is a question by Carlos.
Yes, that's a great question. We have instituted a COVID-19 GMAT GRE waiver. I can share the intricate details of that with students afterwards. They're free to contact me, of course, in that regard. Generally speaking, it applies to students who come from quantitative backgrounds, whether it's engineering or commerce and so on. There are some specific degrees noted in that waiver guidance policy, but if you also come from a non-quantitative background but have taken, I believe, 4 quantitative courses with an average of 80%, then you would be eligible to apply for a GMAT GRE waiver in that regard. But again, I'm willing to share that information if people reach out to me. But yes, the long and short of it is we have instituted a waiver policy for those who we believe it applies to.
Okay, that's great. And to add to this question, an anonymous attendee was asking us, would scholarship options be affected by waiving the GMAT?
Not necessarily. We look at, this is a holistic process. So the application process is a holistic one in the sense that we look for all criteria and parameters that we believe exhibit a student that will succeed in our program. So it's not just about the GMAT, it's about your community involvement, it's about your potential leadership skills, whether demonstrated or potential. It's about your goals, your motivation, articulating clear ideas as to why you are considering UBC, and so on. So I would say no, it doesn't significantly alter that, as long as we believe that you can withstand the rigor of the course and are resilient in that regard. It is a holistic application process, so it's not just one factor that leads towards a scholarship.
Okay, that's great. Another question that is related to admissions, is there does pursuing an MBA for civil engineering span for 5 years experience? Yeah, there was a question here regarding the experience. Is the experience is 8 years of experience too much? So the candidate has 8 years of experience and has heard that this is too much, and the maximum experience, what is the maximum experience that you would accept as a prerequisite to be admitted?
So we don't have a cap in terms of age or experience. What I tell candidates in that regard, people who come with 10 years or 12 years who are applying to our institution is that to keep an open mind in terms of the fact that you would be in a cohort of some students within that cohort may come with 2 to 3. And it's about keeping an open mind to their ideas and being inclusive in that regard. So in terms of a cap, both in age and experience, no, we don't have one.
Okay, we go also to a financing question here with an attendee asking us, are there installments that you can, and what installments can the MBA fee be paid?
So it's 4 equal installments throughout the program, okay? But please bear in mind that, and I don't want to get into the weeds here in terms of immigration because that's not really my field, but in terms of being able to exhibit to the Canadian authorities that you have the means to pay for your journey with us. That is something that you must consider on the onset. But in terms of how you would pay us, it would be 4 equal installments throughout the period, throughout the MBA journey.
Great. And since we are in the financing of the program field, maybe you can tell us if there are any scholarships that are available and other means or alternatives of financing the studies at UBC.
Absolutely. So we have a range of scholarships that vary between 10 and 40,000 Canadian dollars. We have scholarships that look at things like academic merit, community involvement, quite a wide range of parameters through which a scholarship can be dispersed, whether it's innovation or entrepreneurship, demonstrating those abilities throughout your profile, along with, as I mentioned, a holistically sound profile may enable you to win a scholarship. Generally speaking, we assess an application in terms of admission and scholarship at the same time. So there's no additional paperwork required, I believe, except for a few specific ones. That applies both to international and domestic students. There are also external scholarships that UBC does not administer, but that are also published on our website. And also we have partnered, I believe, with Prodigy Financing in terms of loans, going to a loan regime with Prodigy Financing in order to support financially support your journey with us. So there are a few mechanisms through which that can be done. And this is all published on our UBC MBA scholarship page. So if you Google that, it should come right up into your browser.
Okay, that's great. I will now transfer some questions to Mary, and she can tell us a little bit more probably about after graduation. Alejandro is asking us, after graduation, can we stay in the country and work for a time? How much is this time?
Yeah, that's actually connected to a similar question that Zaa's been addressing around immigration. So one of the advantages of doing a program at Sauder is we have the opportunity for international students to stay in Canada after the program. And it varies, but predictably and most commonly, students are able to stay in Canada with a work visa after the program finishes for 3 years. So it gives students a very long runway to work here, to earn Canadian dollars, obviously, and build up some Canadian experience. At the end of those 3 years, some students may return to their home countries. Many in that time actually apply to stay. And I would say the majority of those who do apply to stay are granted long-term status and end up staying in Canada and contributing and being, you know, an immigrant to a country that defines itself by sort of a global perspective, multiculturalism, and one that honestly relies on immigration to support us economically. So that's a long answer to what could be a quick answer. Absolutely. Most of our international students do stay in Canada with the intention of staying long-term.
That's great. Now let's focus a little bit more on careers during the study process. Is there a possibility to work while studying? Is asking us, Alejandro Gomez is asking us this question.
Yeah, also super good question. When you're doing the first few periods of the program, it is academically heavy. And I would say that it's typically advised that students not work in that time. The opportunity as an international student to work part-time is there. But most students find that sort of first few months is really rigorous. And so spending the time on sort of just getting used to being back at school and adjusting and having the time to do your group work and so on, it's generally advised to just prioritize academics. That being said, the summer experience is typically, for most of our students, an opportunity to work, to get a Canadian work experience, Canadian references, to understand what it's like to work in the Canadian environment. And so those months are typically paid. And Zaa showed you a slide early on that between $3,000 and $6,000 Canadian per month is sort of the standard salary for a student. So it's nice to be able to sort of offset your costs, knowing that you'll have a few months in the summer to earn some money. And it's not uncommon then for students when they come back in the fall of their sort of final portion of their program to then work on a part-time basis. You would not be able to work full-time at that point, but you can work on a part-time basis, again, supplementing your income and building the bridge to be able to stay with that organization longer, so that when you do finish your program, 4 or 5 months later, you're actually ready to start full-time. And that's often why students stay on through the summer into the autumn, because it allows them to just keep building out their credibility, working on projects longer, gets you to the employer to see, oh, you're really indispensable. I need to hire you on a full-time basis. And you're sort of set up for that in the January when the program ends. So that's sort of the cycle of work that we see for most students. Not a lot of work at the beginning, definitely working in the summer, and continuing to work on a part-time basis into the autumn until the program's done.
Okay, that's great to hear. And there is a related question here. You mentioned a lot about salaries while students are studying, but maybe you can tell us a little bit more about the salary range in Canada and averages. Do you have any statistics on what is the average salary increase of people that went through the program?
Yeah, the lift, you mean from somebody before they came into the program. I don't have those numbers, to be honest, easy at hand. It really does vary. And I think Zaa spoke to some of this because you might have come from a country where, the value of the currency isn't, apples to apples. So it's not one that I can sort of just immediately share. Zaa, in a slide, did share the average for the 2019 class was about $83,000 Canadian per annum. And that's across all industries, so across the entire class. There are variations in that salary depending on the types of industry that you are targeting. So most want to be MBAs, understand that maybe a career in consulting is that high end, and there was a range there that Zaa showed as well, that you might find, $220,000. Though those types of high end salaries are likely in industries that have a reputation for paying at the higher end. So the 83 is our general overall average across the entire class from 2019. But there are sectors that might pay higher, and there are sectors that might be more in that sort of 75 to 85 range, and hence the average. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, definitely. It's a pretty good margin. I have a question here by Carlos, who is asking us, does UBC help students to get the internships? And also, after the program ends, what is the process to help the students to get the job?
Yes, that is my full-time job. That is what I do. So my role is actually the full-time MBA career manager. And you are assigned a career coach, a career manager with the program. And we work in partnership to help you with everything in terms of putting together your career action plan. So I'm there to support individuals on securing their internship, helping them with setting their goals, help them with, interview skills, all the pieces that make up that career action plan. I work in tandem with you to support you, encourage you, and motivate you, and bounce ideas off of. And that's obviously, we do that in that first cycle when you're first in the program around keying things up for the summer internship, if that's your goal. And then we continue to work together in the autumn when you're continuing to think about, what do I want to do post MBA? And then when the MBA is finished, you continue to work with us. And Zaa mentioned earlier that you have lifetime access to the Career Center. I work with alumni, and we have an alumni careers representative as well. So it's not that when you finish the program that we finish a relationship. We've invested in you. We've invested with you in your career. We like to see you and where you land, not just for the internship, but beyond. And I will tell you that I have students, alumni that I coach 5 years after they finish the program. They're in the middle of a career shift and they're looking to do something else, and they'll come back to me and, hey, I could be that sounding board because I know that career journey. So yes, that's again, long answer for, we are here to support you from the beginning, middle, end, and beyond.
It's great to hear. Maybe you can also give us some examples and case studies of people that the Career Center has been able to help. And probably there's a few scenarios. Some of them are career shifters. The other people would like to get ahead with a better position in the company that they're working for, or in a multinational company. Maybe you can share with us a few case studies that you have on your mind.
I would say that many of our students are career changers. I will say that it's there's a few interesting sectors that are so open to career changers and love when somebody is embracing a big shift and investing in themselves and doing an MBA to open new doors. So the couple of people that immediately come to mind in terms of a huge career shift, one is one who was an educator. He was a teacher. He worked in a private school in Ontario. And when he came into the MBA, he knew he wanted a career in finance, but he wasn't exactly sure what that was going to look like and how it was going to take shape. But through, again, doing his market awareness, his self-awareness and understanding what made sense for him as an educator, he was used to helping people and helping students be their best. And the place where that sort of transferability really rang true was a career in commercial banking. A commercial banker is somebody who works with their clients in helping them understand what are their financial needs, their borrowing needs, their lending needs. And so he was able to shift his career from a gym, PE, maths teacher to a commercial banker at RBC. And that's a couple of years now. He's been promoted 3-4 times since. He's moved from Vancouver to Ontario to, I think he's now just outside of Toronto. So that's an interesting career path that I don't think was one that he could have predicted when he came in the program, but it just shows that being open to the journey and what it can entail and investing the time in that sort of exploration, it can lead to many different things. The other student that maybe not quite much of a shift in terms of function is somebody who had worked in supply chain operations from Latin America. And he wanted to use his procurement operations background, but he wasn't exactly sure in what industry. And so where he had come with sort of an oil and gas background, he was able to shift into lifestyle. And coming to Vancouver sort of opened his eyes to the opportunity around, really changing one's lifestyle and a healthy lifestyle. And he just fell in love with hiking and climbing and skiing. And he'd never done that coming from Latin America. And he ended up in a procurement role at a company called Arc'teryx, who are known for their outdoor wear. So that's an interesting story where, again, coming into the program, would he have had any idea that this was the type of organization that he would be landing in? Absolutely not. Was he able to build off the skills that he brought to the table? Yes. but then also complement that with obviously his MBA skill set, and then networking and creating those relationships in the program that open the doors for that opportunity. So that's somebody who's just finished the program in December of 2019. So it's interesting to see his journey, and 6 months later going into the retail sector and what that looks in the COVID world. So a lot of learning continues for him as he marches on. So those are two that just sort of come to mind immediately. But if you were to ask me about different industries or sectors, I would have many examples that would pop to mind.
Thank you. That's quite some good examples to let people know how you can change how UBC can change your life, most literally. Now let's go for some more admissions questions with Zaa. And there is a question here by Mr. Rodriguez. He's asking us, he applied before May, and how much time does it take to receive any answer about the admission? And Zaa, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about the admission process, like how does it go on the inside, and how do you evaluate the candidates?
Sure. So it should be between 6 to 8 weeks from the receiving a complete application. It goes through several stages, eligibility review, and we send them to have readers sort of do the granular assessment that takes place of a candidate. And then it comes to the admissions committee, in which there are several individuals, and we all sort of cast our vote on that candidate, both in terms of admission and scholarship. Again, I really want to stress the holistic nature of this. So we're looking at the entire profile of someone. Like I said, clearly articulated goals, clearly articulated motivation, demonstrated examples of leadership or leadership potential. Why specifically UBC? So for example, where do you see yourself now? Where do you see yourself 5 years from now? And how do you see, by looking at our program, how UBC can help you to articulate and realize those goals? We look at soft skills as well. So some demonstration of emotional intelligence, your ability to work with others, your ability to manage conflict as well through the interview process and through the questions that you answer in our application portal. So suffice to say that it is not just one element of this admissions process that will get you over the top. It's the whole, okay? And if you are, let's say, a little bit off some of our requirements within reason, of course. So let's say, for example, your GPA in your undergrad was a few points below what we require. We would seek and look for ways in which you redress that imbalance to balance out the profile, whether it's your community involvement, whether it's your leadership potential, and whether you have a clear sort of idea of how you think, although you may not know specifically in what sector you want to go in, as Mary illustrated, but at least have some kind of motivation or clearly articulated motivation into how our program can help you to realize those goals. So in terms of the duration of the process, it really is dependent on receiving all the materials that are necessary. We can make an assessment, for example, maybe without a GMAT score if it's pending and you want us to review that before you receive the score. But I would advise applicants, to the best of their ability, to submit as complete an application as possible for us to really get a sense of who you are, and also to determine whether you can withstand the rigor of the course and your resilience and so on. So these are some of the things that we consider when assessing all applicants.
Okay, that's great. Now a question regarding the duration of the MBA classes and their distribution throughout the week. Can you tell us a little bit more about when do those classes take place and how are they balanced within the working week?
So generally speaking, and right now we're in a bit of a transition period, especially with COVID-19, but classes would begin, let's say, at around 8 o'clock in the morning. They may go, depending on scheduling and so on, up until 6 o'clock in the evening. But we also do have some night classes as well, between 6 and 9:30 as well in the evening. So it really depends on what you're focused on, what your needs are, and so on. In terms of the entire program journey, so period 1, period 2, you would be doing foundation courses, integrated case studies. You would have begun your preliminary collaboration with your colleagues overseas in terms of the global immersion experience or the international consultancy project that I mentioned earlier. Moving forward in the timeline, then we would start looking at things like track courses, so those specializations that I mentioned, as well as the elective courses that one would take, dependent on whatever your track specialization was. We would move through 3, 4, and 5, and then get to the summertime, which is the, as Mary mentioned, the internship, the entrepreneurial project, the industry project, and so on. I hesitate to say this right now for those of you who may be considering the this specific intake, which is a little bit different, but suffice to say that all the components of the program that you have seen online or that I spoke about are still there. Some of the experiences have been tweaked a bit in order to ensure that we can deliver this in the midst of the COVID-19, current COVID-19 environment. So after the internship and the industry project, then we would get into things like the global network of advanced management experience that I spoke about. So exchange programs, taking some of those online networking courses through our partner institutions and so on. Again, continuing with the electives underneath that, and then ending or concluding with the capstone project at the very end. So I hope that's given you sort of a bit of an idea of what to expect.
Okay, that's nice. And there is a question here by Arnav, which is a bit more into the program itself. Specifically, how is the new tech and analytics leadership specialization going to train the students on the technical and coding aspects involved in real-time analytic projects?
So the tech, first of all, it's a brand new stream, so this is still a work in progress, but suffice to say that in all our programs, you're basically being put in the room with and given the leadership. All of this is viewed through a leadership lens. So in terms of giving you exposure to local entrepreneurs or local industry, putting you in the room with decision makers in order to build your network going forward. In terms of the technical aspects of things like coding, I can't really speak to that honestly right now, but it would be more towards not necessarily being the person pushing the buttons, but the person doing the strategic overview of something like the tall track. Yeah, and Mary, if you want to jump in on that, if there's anything you feel that I've not mentioned, you're welcome.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's because it is a new program that it will, you know, the courses are set out and what courses will be delivered. There is obviously an agenda, but other than, you know, some students, if you come with a lot of coding, you might find that doing more of the tech track courses don't necessarily, you know, add the value you want. So maybe you're taking a few of those courses and maybe you're taking some more, you know, the strategy courses and finance, and you're rounding out your skill set. And those are the types of conversations that you have with your career coach. You know, what makes sense? Where do I need to layer on the more sort of technical courses? More often happens with finance, where we get students that maybe, you know, have a goal to go into finance, and so they're really, you know, heavy on the finance courses. And I think the same will be said with the tech analytics courses, that, you know, if you feel like you're doing this as a career changer and you really aren't well equipped, then you'll probably need to take many more of those. And that's where we're here to help navigate that with you. You don't do it blindly. We're here to tell you what's expected, what the market expects, so you can make informed decisions.
Thank you.
That's perfect. We are approaching the end of the webinar, so I would like to ask any of you who has any questions remaining to put them in the Q&A box here at the Zoom platform. And I will also like to remind you that you are able to book your personal meeting with Zaa after the webinar. And you can do so by clicking on the link that I shared with you on the chat. So when you click on the chat, there is a link in there. You click on this link, you go to a login screen. There you have to log in through your email, and as a password, you should use your mobile number or your number the number that you registered with without the country codes, so that you can log in. You log into the Advent Connect platform, where this meeting can be booked and will happen actually. So you are free to take to have this option to meet with Zaa and discuss with him your personal situation and admission questions that you might have. So one of the final questions that I would like to ask is regarding the living expenses, and maybe Zaa, you can tell us a little bit more about living in Vancouver. What are first of all the main costs of living there? Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about accommodation. Does UBC provide any, or does it just assist in finding any accommodation in Vancouver, and so on?
Sure, happy to answer those. So in terms of living expenses and the support that one has, so we have residences on campus. I would urge you, if you are admitted, to apply as soon as possible for those living arrangements. We have off-campus housing resources available to our students as well. And of course, you know, there are vacancies in the market. I believe the market has actually, the cost of rental has actually gone down by 30% as well in terms of renting an apartment in Vancouver. One thing, as someone who has recently moved here, is to do your homework. Really pull out the map, take a look at the campus if you're planning on living off campus, and really do your homework in terms of strategizing in terms of where you want to live and what is affordable for you. As an international student, obviously the tuition fee, as I mentioned, is plus minus 83,000 Canadian dollars. One should budget, in my mind, around an additional $20,000 minimum, I would say, in terms of covering your living expenses. Okay. Rentals are becoming a lot more competitive, as I said, because of the COVID-19 situation. So that's one of the upsides to this unfortunate pandemic. But yeah, you should budget for around that $20,000 mark. Obviously, the more you have, the more flexibility you have in that regard. In terms of the support that we provide, so as a UBC admitted candidate, a candidate who receives a scholarship, we do have housing support. We have an agency that would assist you in sourcing different living arrangements. I believe that will be activated towards the end of this calendar year. So yeah, in terms of living expenses, those are things to really consider. Do your homework, get out the map, get onto some websites and have a sense of what the market is showing you at the moment, as well as in terms of proximity to campus as well.
That's great. And the final question that came from Carlos Davalos is asking us if someone is traveling to study with his family, the kids, is there any program or integration events that involves families?
I do know, sorry, Mary, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I will say that we are very cognizant of students who are coming with families, and that the RHL, which is our academic office, and the student executives from the year before are all very aware of the transition it is to come to a new city for your partner and for your families. So we do a number of different sort of social activities that bring people together, not at this minute, but you know, when people are first arriving. And we have what they call spouses sort of club events. So the spouses can get together and have a network of people who can often sort of share the stories of living with somebody who's in the program. So yes, there's some things that are actually programmed and integrated, and it's definitely something that we continue to invest time and energy in to ensure that they feel supported and they feel like there is a community here for the spouse and family, as well as for, you know, the individual who's going to be in class, and have an automatic community.
Okay, that's great. And we have one final question popping out here. What are the costs for doing the dual degree with Yale, or for the MAM, or dual degree MBAN with the UBC?
Yeah, I don't have the specific cost for the Yale program right now. It is a separate application process as well. So just be aware of that. You need to go through their application regime in that regard. I don't have the specific cost for the MAM right now, but I'd be happy to do a bit of research and send that off to you.